You have a friend. Smart person. Reads more than anyone you know. Catches logical gaps in conversations mid-sentence and doesn't soften it. The kind of person who, when everyone else shares an article, actually reads it first. And then one day, they send you a link. It's a video. Or a long thread. Or a documentary that runs 90 minutes and has a very calm narrator. It's about something, a political event, a death that got outsized coverage, a health crisis, and the argument is that what we were told isn't the whole story. They don't just drop the link. They follow up. Did you watch it yet? Tell me what you think. You sit with that for a moment. Because this is the same person who rolled their eyes at this kind of thing 2 years ago. The same person who sent you Snopes links before Snopes became controversial. The same person whose judgment, in most things, you trusted more than your own. Now they're in it. Somewhere you can't quite follow. The comfortable explanation is that something shifted in them. That a wire loosened. That maybe they were never as rigorous as you thought. But that explanation is wrong. And the real one is far more uncomfortable, because the part of their brain doing the most damage here is the exact same part that made you trust them in the first place. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It has always been this way. For most of human history, the people who survived were the ones who connected dots faster than anyone else. The rustle in the grass before you could see anything. The shift in someone's expression before they finished lying. The cloud pattern that meant the weather was about to turn. Noticing these things wasn't clever, it was the difference between living and not. And the brain that got best at pattern recognition? The curious one. The analytical one. The one that wasn't satisfied with surface answers and kept pulling the thread. Intelligence, in its most basic form, is a heightened sensitivity to signal. But here's what that same sensitivity does when it encounters a world that feels genuinely inexplicable. It looks for the pattern anyway. A major institution behaves in a way that doesn't add up. An official explanation leaves the most obvious questions unanswered. An event produces consequences that seem almost too convenient for the people already in power. Your brain, the one trained to find signal in noise, the one rewarded its entire life for connecting what others missed, does not sit quietly with the discomfort of I don't know. It finds the pattern. Even if the pattern isn't real. Researchers call this apophenia, perceiving meaningful connections between things that have no actual relationship. You've experienced it. You hear your name spoken in a room full of noise when no one said it. The brain finds signal because it is built to find signal. But the smarter you are, the better you are at doing the next step, constructing a case for the pattern you found. You can gather evidence. You can anticipate the objections and neutralize them. You can build something internally consistent, emotionally coherent, and almost impossible to knock over from the outside. Which is exactly what makes it dangerous. It never starts at the deep end. It starts somewhere you can stand. And then the floor drops, inch by inch, and you don't notice, because you're always standing somewhere that feels solid. The part of your brain doing the most damage here is the part you've been training your whole life. And that's where the real trap begins. There's a finding in psychology that almost never comes up in conversations about conspiracy beliefs, because it makes everyone deeply uncomfortable. Intelligence doesn't protect you from believing false things. In some situations, it makes you more vulnerable. The mechanism is called motivated reasoning, the brain's tendency to use its analytical power not to find the truth, but to defend a conclusion it has already emotionally arrived at. You don't think your way to a belief. You feel your way there, and then you recruit your intelligence to protect it. Which is, to put it plainly, just a scientific description of your brain being an excellent lawyer and a terrible judge. Here's the part that lands harder: the smarter you are, the better you are at this. You have more tools. You can find the single piece of evidence that supports your position faster. You can identify the weaknesses in counterarguments and dismiss them more convincingly, to yourself and to others. Researchers sometimes call this the smart person's blind spot, the ability to construct increasingly sophisticated justifications for things you already wanted to believe before you started looking. So when a highly analytical person encounters a conspiracy theory, they don't just swallow it. They test it. They interrogate it. They push back on the parts that feel weak. And if it survives their scrutiny, or if they feel the questions it raises are genuinely worth asking, they adopt it with a level of conviction that is almost impossible to reach from the outside. Because in their mind, they've done the work. They've already seen through the obvious objections. They've thought about this longer than you have. Your intelligence, the thing that made you trust them, is now the thing fortifying the belief against you. But this isn't only about what's happening inside the brain. The rabbit hole itself was constructed. Think about how this content actually reaches people. It almost never opens with the extreme claim. It opens with the reasonable one. A documented historical deception, and there are many. A cover-up that genuinely happened and was confirmed years later. A real inconsistency in an official account that nobody in mainstream coverage bothered to address. That first moment, wait, this is actually real, is the load-bearing piece of the whole structure. Because once that lands, the next claim inherits its credibility. And the next one. And the one after that. By the time you reach something that would have seemed absurd at the start, you've already taken 20 steps that prepared you for it. You didn't leap to the conclusion. You walked there. One reasonable seeming step at a time. And by the last step, you can't see the door you came in through. Researchers who study algorithmic recommendation systems, including documented work tracking how YouTube pathways move users from mainstream content toward increasingly extreme material, found that the architecture isn't accidental. Maximize engagement means maximize emotional intensity. What plays next is whatever made the previous thing feel slightly insufficient. Curiosity gets satisfied, and then it needs more. The system doesn't know what you believe. It knows what keeps you watching. Your brain, the one that just had its worldview questioned, the one now running on the particular electricity of I see something others don't, is not evaluating the next claim carefully. It's receiving it. The defenses are down. The hunger is up. And the content that plays next was selected precisely for that state. The trap wasn't designed for conspiracy theorists. It was designed for attention. But for a certain kind of mind, at a certain kind of moment, it functions like a precision instrument. Think about the friend you were thinking of at the beginning of this. When did it actually start for them? What were they going through at the time? Because people don't fall into rabbit holes when life is working. Look at the timing, almost every time. A loss that rewrote how they saw the world. A period when an institution they had genuinely trusted, medicine, government, the church, the media, failed them in a way they couldn't dismiss or rationalize. A moment when the official account simply did not account for their experience, and no one in authority seemed interested in the gap. Conspiracy theories offer something that almost nothing else in acceptable discourse provides, a complete explanation. Not partial. Not provisional. Not we're still working on it. A full account, of why things went wrong, who is responsible, and what the world actually looks like underneath the version we're shown. For a person living with the slow exhaustion of I don't know why this happened, a complete explanation, even a false one, provides something that functions like relief. The ambiguity closes. The randomness of a painful thing acquires a structure. The suffering gets a face. This is not stupidity. It is a recognizable, human response to unprocessed pain. It just happens to be a response that a particular kind of content ecosystem knows exactly how to meet, and exactly how to deepen. And once someone has found their explanation, taking it away doesn't leave them with the truth. It leaves them with the wound the explanation was covering. That's what you're actually dealing with when you try to argue someone back. Not a factual misunderstanding. A structure of meaning that is also doing psychological work. Every instinct you have in this situation says the same thing: show them the evidence. Walk them through the logical flaws. Trust that the intelligence you know they have will find its way back to solid ground. It almost never works. And not because they're beyond reach. Because of the structure of what you're actually trying to do. When a belief is also protecting someone, from grief, from a loss of trust, from a period of life that felt genuinely threatening, challenging that belief activates something that looks, inside the brain, almost identical to physical threat. The defenses don't lower under scrutiny. They harden. The belief doesn't weaken. It consolidates. The identity built partly around I see what others don't cannot absorb the suggestion that it is simply wrong without losing something that matters. Being wrong isn't just factually incorrect. It dismantles a story someone has been quietly living inside. What does reach people, slowly, without guarantee, is not argument. It's presence. The sustained experience of being in contact with someone who doesn't condescend, who takes seriously the things that are genuinely broken in the world, who acknowledges the real failures of real institutions without agreeing that the explanation is correct. Not someone performing patience. Someone who actually stays. That is slow work. It does not come with a timeline. And it requires you to hold the discomfort of watching someone you care about somewhere you can't pull them out of. It would be easier if this were a story about other people. The credulous. The uneducated. The ones who were never quite as rigorous as you. But that comfort is exactly the kind of false pattern a smart brain builds to protect itself from an uncomfortable truth. The hunger to understand. The refusal to accept that enormous things happen without explanation. The need to find the real structure underneath the official surface. These are not symptoms of a broken mind. They are the same instincts that have driven every genuine discovery, every necessary descent, every important moment when someone asked the question no one was supposed to ask and turned out to be right. The person who doesn't stop at the official answer has, across history, been right far more often than they have been wrong. That instinct is not the problem. The problem is what happens when that instinct meets a world that has genuinely fractured trust, a culture with real and documented deceptions in its recent past, and an information environment engineered to feed the hunger without ever satisfying it. You are not as immune to this as you feel right now. Neither is the smartest person you know. The friend who sent you that link didn't change. They were always this kind of person, curious, pattern-seeking, unwilling to accept the surface. So were you. The difference between where you landed and where they did is smaller than either of you would find comfortable to admit. So here's the question worth sitting with: what complete explanation are you holding right now, about the world, about people, about why things went wrong, that you haven't examined with the same rigor you turn on theirs? The smarter you are, the better you are at defending things that aren't true. Here's the psychology behind why intelligence doesn't protect you, and sometimes makes you more vulnerable.